there's certain things you get to try to mask that pain that you're feeling, because as an NFL player, I can't show pain.
So for anybody who is not a football fan, you could parallel that in that game. Talk about life lessons.
Yeah.
Welcome to Recovery Soapbox, sponsored by Brighton Recovery Center. If you like what you hear, if you like what you see, please subscribe. We're available on Lisbon, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcasts. Like us. It helps. Rate us 5 stars if you feel like it. And I'm extremely excited about our guest today. I never would have thought that I would have someone in really rare company. When you think about the world, when you think about the globe, to be in a class of where there's only 160 of anything, this man sitting across from me has done what's only been done 160 times, and that is intercept Tom Brady. When you think of anything in the whole world that's only been done 160 times, and you got one of them. Like when you put it in that context, right?
Yeah, it makes you feel special.
Yeah, it's.
But he kicked my butt for a lot of years. So.
Yeah, but you got an interception, man.
Yeah, and I beat him once.
Yes, there you go. Erik Coleman is also on CBS Sports. He's on Sirius XM Radio. He played for the Jets, the Falcons, and the Detroit. Was in the NFL for 9 years, NFL's Players Union. And the reason why he has agreed to come on Recovery Soapbox is he's not looking at being an advocate in recovery and doing different things. This guy just wants to help. So thank you so much, Erik, for being here.
Thanks for having me. And it's really been a great experience to be here, to see the facilities. I mean, Utah is an amazing place. And, you know, everywhere I look, there's beautiful mountains. The people are nice. You know, this is a special thing that you guys have going on.
We appreciate it. We, you know, the work we do, we believe in it. But so obviously on the show, we like to talk a little bit about addiction. I want to get to football. There's a lot of things. But for people tuning into this, I mean, addiction, usually, I mean, if they're tuning in, addiction has something to do with it. Hopefully we'll draw some of that NFL audience, though, with you. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how addiction affected you growing up. I mean, that's quite the story. If you could share just a little bit about your experiences and growing up, what that was like, and specifically when you're going into college, like some of those things that happened, if you want to touch on some of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. You know, my parents were both, you know, my father was an alcoholic. My mother, both of them were on drugs. You know, they're addicted to crack cocaine. And, you know, as a child, it really affects how you grow up. You know, my older sister, you know, she was a lot older and she was out of the house. And my younger brother, you know, I kind of tried to protect him from that. You know, the different things. I remember, you know, there were times when I would find drug paraphernalia in the house, and it became a reality that my parents were on drugs. And, you know, for the most part, my parents both went to work. You know, my father was a truck driver, my mother was a social worker, and it just got to a certain point where everything just came to a head. And I remember one day, I was in 5th grade, went off to school, kissed my parents goodbye, came home from school, the car was gone. My dad was gone, and I didn't hear from him for like 3 years. You know, my parents split up. My dad, you know, at the time we were in Spokane, Washington. You know, I was born in Sacramento. We were living in Spokane, and my dad just left. He went back to Sacramento, and my parents were split. And it was my brother, my mom, and I in the house. And that's kind of when things really got bad. You know, my mom kind of spun out of control with the drugs. You know, when you're 11, 12 years old, going through that transition and not having your parents, knowing the drugs are going on, seeing drug dealers in and out of the house, it was traumatic, you know. And it was a time that I try to forget about, you know what I mean. But it's probably one of those times that helped mold me into the person I am today. You know, I tried to help raise my brother, shield him from it as much as I could, but it was tough. You know, it was tough. You know, my mom got to the point where, you know, she wasn't wanting to go to work, you know, and then she ended up getting in trouble at work for embezzling some money. And going through high school, it got tough again, you know, because I'm trying to focus on school, try to focus on my sports, helping my brother get through. My brother is a great dude. You know, he has kids. He's doing great. My sister's doing great. My mom is doing great now. My father is in good health. So I'm thankful now for where they are. But at that time, it was tough to go through that. And, when I was getting recruited, I started getting recruiting letters when I was like a sophomore in high school. And I was like, oh, I could play football at this level, you know what I mean? So I never really dreamed of playing football in college. So at that time, it was a big surprise for me. I love playing basketball. I thought I was going to go to the NBA, but I'm like 5'11", 5'10". Point guard. I could dunk, though.
Really?
I was
Nice.
pretty good. I was
Athletic.
pretty good. But that was about 30 pounds ago. And
you can't dunk anymore?
Nah, probably not. I don't.
We could go out and try. We got to.
As soon as I look right now, as soon as I look at a basketball, my knees start swelling up, my back starts hurting, my body's like, listen, we gave you 9 years in the NFL. That's plenty. But back to the story, we going through high school, getting recruited. I went into my junior year, and now it became serious. I was going to get some scholarship offers, started going to different camps and things, and when it was time to go on those recruiting trips, my mother was gone to prison. So I moved in
at the same time.
Yeah, probably a little bit before.
Wow.
So I was living with good friends of mine, the black family. They're a Mormon family. Taught me a lot about religion. Taught me a lot about everything else. Other than my family structure that I had, my broken family. But moving in with them was great. Went on recruiting trips by myself. Had to decide on a college by myself. And when I went off to college, my friend's dad took me to college. And, it wasn't until about halfway through my freshman year of playing that my mom was released from jail. She was in jail for about a year. And she got to come see me play in college. And it was special. It really meant a lot to me to see her get out. She started working on herself. She went back to school, got her AA degree, and really just became her own person. And I'm really proud of the transition she's made. She's taken many strides. She works for the church now. She's a great grandmother. To my brother's children who live out there in Spokane, and when she can, my sister's children, my sister's in Seattle. So she does a lot for our family. And I'm really proud of the moves that she's made and the progress that she's made as a person. But for me as a child growing up in that, it was rough. And I had a lot of demons, kind of even when I was in my professional career. There were times where I would hit points and, I'd be depressed. And I was going through different times. And I was like, why am I feeling like this? Why am I insecure? Why am I not? I'm in the NFL. I'm successful. I'm playing. Like, why don't I have any self-esteem? I don't have any feeling of self-worth. And it wasn't until I went and saw someone that I kind of dug those skeletons out and figured out that I was angry at my dad. I was mad at my mom for these different issues, and they came out. And ever since then, ever since I saw someone and sought out help, it's really helped me face those demons and grow as a person.
Oh, when I hear that, I think of a lot of things. For me, I know if I would have found the paraphernalia, I would have done it. My mom, same thing, addicted. I think that's the difference. So between someone with the disease of addiction and then you, so what steered you not towards it? I mean, because you feel like a lot of people, whether it's, what was it? Because when you see that, why?
Yeah, you know what? It's crazy because, I always had a good relationship with God, and I always felt that I was being watched over. I always felt like like even in those times when I was alone, I never felt alone. And in those times, I got so angry at it that I remember telling my aunt, like, I'll never do drugs. I don't want to be like them. You know what I mean? And I kind of took it and went a different direction. It was motivation for me to get out of my situation. Even at that age of 11, I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to live, like, I want to be a good person. You know what I mean? Not saying that you're a bad person if you do drugs, but at the time, that's what you're thinking. Yeah. My parents are doing this, and I don't want to be like you. I went and lived with my grandmother. Like, I just wanted out. And so growing up, I had a lot of friends that got into selling drugs. They got into doing drugs, smoking marijuana, drinking a lot. And, not saying that I didn't, I had my drinks in high school and, I had my fun, but it was always in moderation. And I always kept myself away from those who were doing it really bad. Because there were times in high school and in college where I don't have any money. And my buddies are rolling up in Cadillacs and driving new cars, money in their pocket. And I'm struggling to get by. And I'm in college playing football, trying to do things the right way. And I easily could have went that direction. But just in the back of my mind, I always said it's going to pay off. Stay the course, continue to follow these blessings that you've been given. Because to come out of my circumstances, to get a college scholarship, it's got to be somebody watching out for me. You know what I mean? Because growing up, I wasn't the best athlete. You know, there are guys from my neighborhood right now who are better athletes. They're faster than me. They might have been stronger than me. But I always had that heart. I always worked hard. I sacrificed hanging out. I sacrificed doing all the things that young kids do and focus on me getting better, you know, trying to get stronger. I'll go to the field. I lived across the street from a junior high school. I'll go out there and run. I'll go out there and hit the little sleds and practice tackling just because I just loved it. And it was really a getaway for me. You know, a lot of kids run away and, you know, a lot of people face their issues different ways. I took mine out on sports.
That's awesome.
And it was a great outlet for me.
So one thing I commend you for, you know, at dinner last night when we were talking, the stigma of addiction. Mm-hmm. I mean, someone that's had the success and the level you've had and witnessed addiction, and obviously see it and know about it, to want to step up, and it's clear that you believe that addiction is a disease. Mm-hmm. And when you think about that, what is the view internally of the NFL as far as addiction and disease?
The view of it, I mean, I feel like for a long time it was, you know, they just threw a blanket over it, you know, and they blamed it on the players individually. But I think that there is a real problem. I mean, you think about the whole idea of playing in the NFL. You know, and I was telling you this yesterday. When I got into the NFL as a rookie, I was drafted in the 5th round. Typically, 5th rounders are special teams players. They might be on practice squad. They may not really make the team, but while in training camp, the guy ahead of me, he pulled a calf muscle. That gave me an opportunity to get into the starting lineup. You know, like I told you, I sacrificed everything. I would study late. I would stay after. I was always like that in college. And when I got to the NFL, I took that same work ethic, and I got the opportunity to start, and I never gave it up. You know, so I continued to grow. That year, they have a rookie wage scale. So based on how much you play, the percentage of the snaps you play, and how much money you're getting paid, at the end of the year, you get a bonus. And I played like 99% of the snaps on defense and ended up breaking a record and doubled my salary that year.
Nice.
But it was because I was healthy. And if I would have got hurt, then that gives someone else an opportunity to play. So the way I got on was someone got hurt. And if I were to get injured, that's giving someone else an opportunity. So they want to keep you on the field as long as you can, or you want to keep yourself on the field as long as you can because you don't want to give up your livelihood. So what happens when you get an injury? Most people, they pop a pill. You know, the doctors will pass out some pills to them. They get shots before games. Whatever you have to do to get yourself out there on the field and perform is what you're going to do. So a lot of times guys they'll get dependent on these pills because they're playing through all this pain. You know, I think I told you this when I first got here. At the end of the season, 100% of the players in the NFL are hurt. Everybody's playing through something. You know, you might have a contusion to somewhere. You might have a sprained ligament. You know, there's never been a time where I wasn't hurt, you know, playing football. And it's a very violent game. And that's never going to change about it. You know, you can change the rules, but it's a violent game. So as long as it's a violent game, you're playing this sport, people are going to take medication to get through. Some people lean on marijuana. Some people lean on, you know, the pills. Some people drink, you know, but you have to cope with it and continue to fight through. And I think that now there's being more of a light shed on it, and players are trying to get smarter. Doctors are getting smarter. Teams are getting more into it. You know, they're getting help. And I think they're moving in the right direction, but you know, it's a what have you done for me lately league, and you need to be out there in order to play. So as long as that happens, guys are going to use drugs.
Way more so than any other league, especially after talking to you the last day. Mm-hmm. It is a league where players are absolutely expendable.
Yeah.
Way more so. Even the way that's structured with your tenure and your retirement, and it blows my mind a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the average career is 2.7 years, I believe. And, you know, in order to get your retirement benefits, you have to be vested, and that means you have to play 4 years. So you have to make it 4 years through the NFL to get any retirement. So, you know, it's a battle, you know what I mean? And it's a battle to stay on top. You know, there's so much pressure to perform at a high level in the NFL. You know, at a normal job, you can have your days off where you're not performing. But in the NFL, you have to get an A+ on every test. Or, you know, if I get a B, then I'm getting beat for a touchdown. And my team is losing, and my coach is getting pressure, and you know people lose jobs over that. So you have to be on point. So there's a lot of pressure that goes along with it, and that goes into the medication as well. Also, when you get out of the league, when you get done playing football, there's an identity crisis. You know, I've been playing football my whole life, and dedicating everything I am to football, and now it's taken away from me. And now what am I?
Wow.
You know, you run into people, you know, at the park, you run into people at the grocery store, and they're like, oh, yeah, Eric, you're not playing right now. Why aren't you playing? Or, you know, the Giants need a safety. Well, they should pick you up. And you're like, you don't think I want to be playing football right now?
Yeah.
You know, I'm 31 years old now. It's a young man's game. You know, that kind of stuff happens. But if you don't have a plan after you're done, then that's when the depression creeps in, you know, because you're losing your identity. You have to change your lifestyle and how you live because the checks aren't coming in. And so now you're seeing your bank account depreciate. You're seeing your bank account go down. You still have the same bills because you probably have a nice car, a nice house, your family. You know, you got used to living this lifestyle, and it's depressing to have to change that or sacrifice some things. Maybe you start fighting with your wife. You know, there's so many things that go into it. And guys, instead of sometimes seeking help, sometimes guys start smoking marijuana. Sometimes guys start drinking. You know, there's the strip clubs. You know, there's certain things that you get to try to mask that pain that you're feeling because as an NFL player, I can't show pain because I lose my job if I show pain. So we're trained to do that, and we're trained not to ask for help. And so that's a problem, and I think that the NFL has started to change that now. There's a group called the NFL Legends Community, and they have these transition coaches who are former players who are trained in suicide prevention, marriage counseling. You know, they're trained in all these things. So when they see you come out of the league, you get fired. You get fired. That's how everyone. When I say fired, 97% of players get fired from their job. So you know what I mean. So you know, everyone says I retired. You know, I could say I retired in 2013. No, I got fired, and no one else would hire me. That's the reality. So
you talked about how they're literally lined up. You'd come in on a Tuesday, you have Tuesday off, and at your position, and there's younger, faster, trying to take your job.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so talking about taking your job, every year I played, they drafted someone at my position to replace me, and I just kept beating them out. But even bigger than that, during the week. So you play a game on Sunday. Monday you come in and lift weights, watch film, and kind of get your mind, you get past that game. Tuesday is your day off. Wednesday you start the work week. So on Tuesday, it's a day off. You might come in and get some treatment, or you might come in and catch up on film for the next opponent. And all while you're doing that, there's a group of guys working out. And they might be at your position like, man, I just gave up a touchdown, and now they got another safety in there working out. And you go into your room on Wednesday, and you look around, and you're like, what happened to John? Oh, John's gone. And they brought in another guy.
Can you imagine in any other industry, law or even my industry, it's like I come into work and there's like 5 marketing director interns all like, we're going to take my job.
Yeah,
they're all lined up.
But it's a high stakes game. You know, there's a lot of money invested in it. You know, coaches are getting paid a lot of money. Players are getting paid a lot of money to perform. So when you don't perform, you become expendable. And that's just the name of the game.
You brought up 2 points that I wanted to touch on, marijuana and then also domestic violence. Mm-hmm. First, marijuana. What's your perspective on it versus pills? I mean, it sounds like I read an article this morning. I was doing my homework on all this, and it talked about there's not even prescriptions written, and that literally just handfuls of pills are given out. And what's your view on maybe marijuana as an option?
You know, I think that, you know, I've never been a big marijuana guy. You know, I'm not saying I never tried it, but I never really regularly did marijuana. But from what I see, you know, it's less addictive than the opioids, than taking pain pills, and guys have less problems with it. You know, I do use the CBD oils, the cannabis oils, on joint pain, on different things, and I think those things should be used.
I think so too. I have, many people in addiction. I think if they struggle from pain, if I ever had severe pain, I'm looking first to CBD for sure.
Yeah, you go to CBD, and instead of taking the pills. You know, I was telling you this earlier. You know, I had a teammate, close friend of mine. You know, he had several injuries. You know, had a neck injury, had a surgery on it, and he started taking the pills. Got addicted to them. Also drank. You know, at the age of 38, he almost died. You know, had to have his liver taken out and replaced at the age of 38, and you become dependent on that. And you know, I'm not a big advocate. I'm not going to sit up here and say everybody should smoke marijuana, But sometimes for pain management, that it's a better option than taking these pills, because I don't see too many people that are addicted to marijuana, when they're using it medicinally.
Yeah. And it's a fine line too, because when you have someone like me, like I cannot smoke marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot. So if you have somebody that's gifted athlete, worked their asses off, and they're kicking ass in the NFL, and then they get hurt, but if they have that disease and they start taking those pills,
might trigger something else.
Exactly. And so, I mean, but for me, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I know for a fact that if I smoke marijuana today, within, I don't know how long, I might be able to maintain for a couple months, but I would lose everything, because that's just that addictive thing inside of me. So it is a problem, and I hope with the work that you're doing, that the stigma and maybe more awareness can be made in all industry. And I mean, but in the NFL, the pain pills.
Yeah, I mean,
that's.
It's just a regular thing, guys will start taking them, and maybe one day you have an injury, one game, and you need to take a pain pill. So you take the pain pill and you play well. Well, next week, I played well last week when I took the pill. Let me just pop it again, and then it just becomes your routine. And next thing you know, you can't play without taking a pill, and it's sad. It's sad that happens, and it's unfortunate. So I think that teams are getting smarter, and they're getting more strict with the dispersing of pain pills, and I think players are getting more aware of it as well, because for a while it's just, that's what I do, that's what not realizing the consequences, because you're so focused on now, you don't think about your future, and guys are starting to think about their futures now.
Do you think and if this gets too touchy, I mean, but on an ownership level, do you think they even give a shit about the players overall?
I mean that is a tough one, because as players, when you're playing, you feel like you're a racehorse. You feel like you're dispensable. You feel like if you get hurt, they're gonna send you out to the pasture. And that does kind of happen. So you develop that feeling, that you have to be on the field and that no one cares about you, because it's kind of a us against them thing. But as I grow, as I step away from the game, they are doing more things to help out players. Yes, you're still you can still be shipped out at any given time, and yes, you are expendable. No one person is greater than the team, but as a former player, I still feel that way. I do.
I think with the education but in any major corporation, like even outside of the NFL, I mean, usually it's about profits and winning.
Yeah, the bottom line.
Exactly. And so just in such a violent sport, there's going to be a lot of other things that come along with it. Mm-hmm. And speaking of violence, I looked up the domestic violence issue, because I don't take anything at face value, right? Like, I mean, whether we were talking about news, whether it's Fox News or MSNBC, they're going to push their agenda. I found it fascinating when I Googled domestic violence in the NFL. It literally came up with several different searches, and maybe Neil could put it up and show just the front page, where they each contradicted each other. One showed that domestic violence in the NFL was actually lower than the national average, and then I read an article that showed that it was 5 times higher per capita, and that the violent crimes that showed were extremely higher among football players. Do you speak to that a little bit? I mean, what you witnessed.
I think it's. I don't know the numbers. I'm not a big stats guy when it comes to that, but I have a hard time thinking that it's any different than if you look at the demographic of lawyers. You look at a group of lawyers, and there's going to be some drunk driving. There's going to be some domestic violence. That's just the national average. When we do stuff as NFL players, we live in a fishbowl.
Yep.
So everything that we do is going to be shown. I can't go out to a bar and go get in a regular fight. Somebody might be able to have a fist fight and go home. Everybody licks their wounds and it's done. I'm on YouTube. I'm on TMZ. I'm on everywhere. You know what I mean? Because you live in a spotlight. And as an NFL player, you have to understand that. It's a privilege to be playing in the NFL. So you have to control your emotions. You have to control that. You're not the same as a normal person who does not play in the NFL. So the NFL does a lot for counseling. I will say that.
Yeah.
They, when you get into the league, they have, the all-pro dad people. They have, people who talk about domestic violence. They talk about options and what can I do if I'm in this situation where my wife is arguing with me and she's in my face and she's pushing me. What do I do? we talk about those situations. We have group therapy, and every once in a while, there's going to be somebody who goes off the wrong end.
There's going to be that in life.
That's going to be that in life.
Yeah.
And as a football player, I think it's just that we live under that microscope, so it's just amplified a lot.
I agree completely. And what little, I mean, again, I'm far from an expert, but I do have an open mind to it. And what little research I did, I would say that the numbers would be that. And I would even say, I bet you we could find industries where it's
a lot worse.
Way worse.
In the NFL, the thing is, the NFL is full of a bunch of great men. You know, like you think about it, you get vetted. Before I got drafted, they wouldn't talk to my high school coaches. They talk to people in the community. They do their background. They do their research on you. You can't just make it into the NFL just because you're a good football player. They don't care about that. It has to be, you have to be smart. You have to be a good person because they're investing millions of dollars into you. You think that they're going to invest this money into you if they think that you're a troublemaker? Yeah. You know, when I meet guys, when I talk to my fellow NFL players, it's a bunch of good guys. You know, they do a lot in the community. They raise awareness for different causes.
And there's not a light shine on that.
There's not enough. You know, when I was with the Falcons, you know, Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, he urged us to do community service. And we would have community service boards on our days off during the season, our time of rest. Everybody on the team would be out in the community helping others, helping people that are less fortunate, helping kids read, going to the hospitals. You know, they don't shed a light on that stuff. You know, the NFL and their players do so much in the communities. They do so many great things. You know, they might have businesses going on, but the light is shed when something negative happens. And that's really a shame.
It's just that news stories, man. Like whatever makes, I don't know why.
Sells papers.
We've talked about it on this podcast a few times, like the positive stories, it seems like they could generate traction if they were done right.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like they'd watch other talk about, I mean, how many times do you see, like when Tiger Woods had that thing happen with him, and he's pulled, how many times do you see his mugshot? But then how many times have you seen all the stuff that he's done that's been positive? None.
Yeah, you never see it.
Yeah, negative news, it sells papers, no doubt. So another thing that, speaking of negative news, brain injury, man, concussions.
Yeah.
When you think of it.
It's real and it's scary. You know, like I said, football is a violent game. You know, it goes against every natural instinct you have. You know, to run full speed into somebody else who's running full speed, there are going to be some consequences. You know, your body's going to break down at some point. But I think with this education that we're doing, now you know about it. You start to look out for things more. You know, when I first got into the NFL, I have three. I'll say this: I have 3 documented concussions. I know for a fact I had way more than that. You know, when I first got in the league, I mean, you hit somebody, you wake up. I mean, you black out. First of all, you get up, you can't see straight. That's a concussion. But what do? I shake the cobwebs out, focus on the next play, and let's go do it again.
You got how many seconds in between?
I mean, you got 40 seconds to get ready for the next play. And so
it's a 40-second concussion
recoup. And I've seen guys, you know, because again, when I go back to the injury stuff, you don't want to give someone else an opportunity. Like, this is my job. I work so hard to get in the position that I'm playing, that I'm contributing to my team, that I'm a star. I'm not going to give that up. You know, but as I evolved throughout the league, I became the union rep for the Falcons. I go to the annual union meetings, and they start bringing up these concussion issues. And I'm like, man, what are they talking about? And then they break out all the studies and the numbers and the statistics and what happens to you after you're done. And it just blew my mind. It blew everyone's mind, you know, the media, the players, and it scared everyone. In the NFL, you know, they've changed some rules to, you know, try to limit the violent hits. It's going to happen. As far as after football, some people are more susceptible than others than having brain trauma. You know, I think that there's ways you can do the best you can. You know, they say that after you have a concussion, the rest is the important part. Don't rush back to playing football again, because, you know, if I get a concussion, that's okay. But if I come back and hit my head again while my brain's repairing itself, it's going to cause more damage. So I think being smart about when you come back, you know, taking care of your body, eating right, getting your rest, putting the right things in your body, you can help yourself, but at the end of the day, it's still a violent game, and things are going to happen. And it's really unfortunate, and I hate to see my brothers struggling after football, you know, mentally, physically. You know, you talk to some people, and it's like, it's sad. It brings tears to your eyes to see a guy who you probably played against and they're struggling mentally. They can't remember things. They're talking slow. Their speech is slurred. It's rough. You know, when I watched that Concussion movie, my wife and I watched it. I cried through the whole movie. You know what I mean? Those are my brothers. Those are guys who paved the way for me who are just struggling. You know, I had a coach. One of my coaches tried to kill himself. You know, Junior Seau did kill himself. You know, these are guys who I look up to.
And they say it's a result of the traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
The suicidality is one of the main.
And it's tough. But, again, when you educate yourself more. So now when I see one of my teammates, he's a little dizzy, you know what? I'm going to get the trainers. Get him off the field. You're not playing anymore. Because I care about you. Yeah. I care about you as a player, and I care about your family and your future and what happens to you after the game. So you can be as tough as you want, but you're gonna go sit down. Yep. Everybody knows you're tough. You know, it's just kind of a change in the mindset. But I think with the education, you know, we're trying to take more steps to be safer, make it a safer game, and let guys live long, healthy lives after they're done.
So I would imagine if you dig in, you talked about the players after the game, and you've mentioned it a couple times. Is addiction then something that you see a lot that continues outside from the pills and from and alcohol, or do you think the percentages are higher among, again, going with NFL versus any other industry?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think that the rate is any higher. You know, I think that, you know, I mean, I can really speak for myself and guys that I've seen, and most of the players that I played with are in good shape. You know what I mean? They might go out and, you know, have a drink or two, or, you know, maybe they might overindulge every once in a while. But, you know, I work for the NFL alumni now. We deal with former players, you know, doing physical exams. You know, we just saw over 90 guys at the Super Bowl, you know, doing physical evaluations on them. And for the most part, guys are doing well. You know, and I don't think the rate is any higher. I hope it's not. You know, it's always sad when you see somebody struggling.
In anything.
And I think part of that you know, that addiction rate, a lot of it goes to being depressed. A lot of guys, when they're done playing football, they're depressed. They don't know what to do. And so I don't think there are some cases where it's going to be giving out too much medicine. But other cases there's depression issues. You know, there's loss of, you know, you lose all your wages. You might lose your wife. You know, you hit rock bottom. You know, guys don't know what to do. They don't know. And we're too proud to go ask for help sometimes. So I think the steps that the NFL has taken and being proactive with former players and getting involved, making phone calls, following up with guys, I think that it's really helping the former players transition.
I think it's just like anything else and anywhere else, just the spotlight is on, whether it's NFL or in a high-profile profession such as that. I think that the resources are there probably more so for an NFL player if they're willing and want help. Yeah. Than maybe a lot of other areas. Like, I mean, the resources would be there. When you were talking about the concussions, I thought about your son, and 3 years old, right?
Yeah.
If he has your genes and he decides he wants to play, you going to coach him and lead him that direction? Or
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely. Football. The game of football has done so much for me. You know, it brought me here to Utah. You know, I live in New York now. I have a beautiful wife. I have 3 children. You know, I'm blessed. You know, financially, I was given a great start. You know, it's taught me a lot of lessons, life lessons, and I would never want to take that away from somebody. You know, I think with my son growing up, you know, I didn't play tackle football until I was in middle school. You know, I think sometimes kids play tackle football too early.
What is too early?
You know, I don't know. For my son, I can just speak for what I'll do with my son. I'm not letting him play tackle football until he's in middle school. He can play. I grew up playing flag football. You can learn the fundamentals. You can learn teamwork. You can learn all the values of playing football through flag football. I'm gonna have him do flag football, play all the sports that he wants to play, if he wants to play. You know, and when he's old enough, when I feel that, you know, he's starting to mature a little bit, then I'll let him play tackle football. There's no rush. Football is it's a different sport. Unless you play quarterback or kicker or something, that's like a specialized position. It's not like basketball where I have to be in the gym all day shooting jump shots. Football is a great game because there's a position for everybody. You know, if you're big and slow, okay, there's a position for you. If you're a little guy who's quick, all right, we'll find something for you. If you're just strong, you know, there's a position, offense, defensively, special teams, that everybody can play. And it's just the ultimate team sport. So I would never want to take that away from my son, or never urge anyone to take it away from their kids, because it's helped me help develop me into the man I am today.
So you talked about all the lessons you've learned. You've had some phenomenal coaches, Herm Edwards, right?
Yeah.
And can you speak to a little bit? I mean, what did you take from that, or
I've had a lot of great coaches. Even through high school. My high school football coach John Hook, my basketball coach Terry Reed. They were the ones that were there for me when everything was going bad in my home life. They understood what was going on. They knew my mother was going away, but they helped me focus on football. They helped me focus on school, graduating, doing the right thing, because they saw potential in me. And when I think about all these coaches, they helped develop me into a man. They're big brothers, they're father figures. My dad wasn't around, so that's who I leaned on. Going to college, Mike Price was my coach. He was a great man. Taught me a lot of values. And then getting drafted by Herm Edwards and the Jets, that was the ultimate blessing for me. Herm was a former player, a guy who's passionate about football. He's passionate about helping develop men. So while a lot of the lessons that we learned from Herm were about football, most of the lessons were about life.
Wasn't there? It's a direct parallel.
Yeah, go to sleep. Make sure you're home by midnight, because nothing good happens after midnight. That was one thing that he used to always say. Nothing good happens after midnight. And another
spend
thing,
$15,000 at a strip club after midnight.
So and then another thing is said, you didn't get any cuter. You just got some money in your pocket. So she don't want you because you got cuter. You know what I mean? Like, he would teach you these lessons, and they stick with you. They're funny, and you laugh at them in the meeting rooms, and you're cracking up. But they're in the back of your mind. Like, you know what? Maybe I need to go home right now. When you're gonna tweet something, don't hit send if you're angry. Just smart decisions that you make about life. Taught me about the history of the game. Where we've come from as, African-American men in our role in the NFL. Taught me a lot about that, how to study. There's just so many life lessons I've learned from coaches throughout the years that, I look forward to one day becoming that coach, for some young men, and raising my son, to do it the right way as well.
So something I clearly would never understand, being African-American, and I'd never be able to understand that. But it transitions to one thing I wanted to talk about: taking a knee and the Black Lives Matter thing, all that. For me, when I see it, it's like wonderful. It's what America's about. It's not disrespecting the flag, in my opinion. It's definitely not disrespecting the military. I don't know how the hell they twisted all that into it. Talk about a spin. What's your stance on taking a knee?
It makes me sad. It makes me sad how people reacted to it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it makes you sad that they're taking a knee.
No,
I was like, that is not what I thought I was going to say.
Because I think a lot of people paid more attention to them taking a knee and less attention to the reason why they're taking a knee.
Absolutely.
I think that was saddening for me. As a black man, I give those guys a lot of credit for being brave. In doing that. I know for a fact they did not want to offend anyone, but the way they did it. It offended a lot of people. They focused on the action, and it kind of blocked away some of the message, most of the message. And it's unfortunate because it needs to be addressed. There are a lot of problems that we still have in this country, racial problems that we have. And I think them doing what they did to raise awareness, I commend them for it. But it's definitely a very tough and sore topic to talk about with a lot of people, because a lot of people don't understand. And people tend not to understand things that don't involve them. Same thing for drug addiction. If I'm a family member, if I'm a guy and I've never faced addiction, I've never known anyone with addiction, oh man, get that out of here. I don't want to talk about that. It's not my problem. That's your problem. Same thing with racial inequality. If I'm not feeling it, if I don't understand it, I don't know anyone who's
here. And you're not around.
Wherever you're from, if you're not affected by it, you're not going to understand it, and it's going to take people to look at things from someone else's perspective. Open your horizons a little bit. Talk to other people. Figure out what they're going through, because while you may have your issues in life, there's a lot more people going through different issues. There's a lot more people less fortunate than you and that are struggling with things. And if you just took the time to talk to a black man, what is it like? What is it like every day? You know, to drive down the street, when you see a police officer, you get nervous because you don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Talk about someone with addiction. People look at people with addiction like they're just, oh man, like they're just a problem. It's a disease.
It's a character defect.
It's no different than diabetes to me. It's a disease that's brought on by doing something, and it needs to be treated as such. And I think that's the reason why I want to get involved in addiction, in rehab, and awareness for what's going on in the world, because it breaks my heart to see how people treat people with addiction problems, you know, with that are trying to recover, that are trying to make their lives better, and they don't understand that they don't want to be breaking into a car. They don't want to sacrifice their family and all the things, their jobs. They don't want to sacrifice that. It's a problem that they need to be addressed, that they need help. You know what I mean? Same with my mom. My mom needed help. My dad needed help. It's not his problem, but it affected me, and it affects so many people around you that it needs to be a bigger deal. You know, I think that racial inequality, addiction, you know, there's a bunch of different things, sexual harassment. You know, you can go on and on and on about these different topics that are wrong with our country right now that need to be addressed.
Absolutely. That's an amazing, I can't believe you talk about a good spin. You just took and look at that comparison. That was, don't you think that negative perception though is by design? Like they want to shut, like what is it? What is the threat of the knee? Because what we hear and what most people know, it became about something it's not about. I mean, I'm open-minded enough. I have been around enough diversity in my life, and I care enough about humanity and people that I'll look at things from all sides. But it took on a life of its own. I mean, Colin Kaepernick should be at least a backup. Would you agree with that or no? Or maybe I don't see it.
Yeah, you know, that's a touchy subject right there with Colin, because while I appreciate what he's done, you know, for our community, what he's done for the game. I think, you know, one thing about NFL owners is they don't want distractions in their locker room. So when they go into a locker room, when you go into a locker room, it should be about football. And I can't fault them for that. This is their business.
No, that's right.
You don't want a distraction. You don't want something else that's going to distract from the one goal that you have, which is winning a Super Bowl. You know, whether it's you're standing up for whatever. If it becomes a distraction, then you're expendable. Just like if you're hurt, you're expendable. I don't know how much Colin did personally to prepare to play football. I don't know how much he wanted to play. You know, so, you know, that's not something I really followed closely. Yeah. But I do know that his body of work, what he's done on the field, you know, he was a pretty good player. I'm not saying he should be a starter. There are plenty of guys who are better than him.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
But, yeah, I think his talents are good enough to be a backup. But, again, you have to wage that. Is he good enough to deal with the distraction that he creates? And a lot of the times when it doesn't equal out, they're not going to sign you.
Well, I can see that, too, in a team atmosphere. I never even thought of it that way. Like when you're – no matter what the cause was, if you're a distraction – and if it's going to be more about him and what he's doing, it would take away from everything that the team's doing.
Everything that we're trying to do. So if you're a defensive back on that team and you're white, all the reporters are going to come ask you, what do you think about Colin Kaepernick? Every day, somebody's going to be working an angle, and it's taken away from the game. And it's taken away from football, the reason that you're here. And that's ultimately why I believe he didn't get signed.
Yeah. So when I think of social change in America, I mean, a lot of things have happened. I mean, from the civil rights movement, there's a lot of work we need to do, and a lot of things I would never know what it's like to feel. I mean, I know as an addict what it's like on that side, but I think social change starts on small levels, like, and then bring people together. I commend you for wanting to shine a light on a lot of things, and you're trying to find your voice in all that. Specifically, what is motivating you as far as like with the addiction thing to help with that, like to at least shine a light? I mean, that's what you've said. Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously I went through it as a child, and it scares the hell out of me. You know, I have 3 young kids. You know, it's become a really big problem in New York where I live. It's become a big problem around the country, and I think that it's the same thing. If we educate each other, maybe that might help one kid say no. You know, maybe it might help somebody open their eyes and say, you know what, maybe I should get myself some help. You know, because I think people tend to be ashamed to admit that they're at fault, or not at fault, but that they're not perfect, and ask for help. People have a lot of pride. So if I go out there and I'm advocating, getting help, talk about addiction, letting people know that there's others like you that are going through the same problem. They've made the transition. They're in the real world now. They went from sleeping in a car to now, I'm running a business. It can happen for you. If I shed some light on that, share enough stories, meet enough people, maybe it might help one or two people want to change their lives and make their lives better, make the lives better for their children or for their friends or, their parents or whatever it may be, just for themselves, to know that I am worth something, I can get out of this, and I can make a better life for myself.
That's awesome. I don't know why I just thought of this. I pictured you coming out of a tunnel for the first time, and I don't know why. So I want to talk about it because maybe I should. So, you started as a true freshman at Washington State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about each one of your first game, like the first game then in college and then your first game as a Jet, man, what that was like?
Yeah, it was so in college, my first game, who did we play? I want to say we played Stanford. We played Stanford at Washington State in Pullman, and I just remember being scared. Because I'm 18. I was 18 years old.
Jeez.
I'm like a boy. You know what I mean? And I'm playing against what I think are men. You know what I mean? They're 21 years old, got facial hair. I can't even get a mustache. And I'm going out there, and I was just scared. There are so many people out there. I'm playing against players who I grew up watching. And I go out there, and, I played a little bit. And it was just enough to get me in there. My first play, I went to go get in on a tackle and got hurt. I got hit. I got a thigh bruise. And I was like, oh, my gosh. Is this what playing football is going to be like right now? You know what I mean? I played through it, and, it ended up working out. But I remember being scared. When I went on to the NFL, my first game, that was just excitement. I was confident in myself.
Was your first game at Jets or was it away?
It was at the Meadowlands.
Wow.
We played the Cincinnati Bengals. Opening week, it was –
and Curtis Martin was a running back?
Curtis Martin was a running back. Chad Pennington, my quarterback. Wayne Corbett. John Abraham. I played with some great players. Kevin Mawai. I played with a couple Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And I was blessed to be in their presence, to be in that locker room, to learn from them. But coming out of the tunnel the first time, and it was a beautiful day. They had the jets flying over the stadium. The crowd was crazy. I just remember just looking around and just being thankful and hearing the national anthem and literally just having tears in my eyes. Wow. Just having I just was overcome with emotion, because I was pumped up for the game, but then I started reflecting on where I came from.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Man, I'm not supposed to be here. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I didn't deserve it, but what are the odds that I'm a boy from Spokane, Washington, who grew up, I grew up with some good people. I did. But grew up in a troubled home. My parents did what they could to make us have a good life. But to make it to the NFL and to be starting, I was just overcome with emotion. I was crying, and then as soon as it was done, I went back to being tough, being the tough guy and fired up. And I remember playing that game and going through, and I'm playing against Chad Johnson and T.J. Hushmanzada,
Chad Johnson,
Peter Ward, all these guys who were
Ocho Cinco, right?
Yeah, Ocho.
Were you on?
So,
Wow.
So during that game, I remember tackling these guys and being like, oh, okay, I could do this. You know what I mean? And then we were up by 2 touchdowns, I believe, probably about 4 minutes left in the game. I'm guarding Chad Johnson in the slot. And
wow.
I'm covering him, and I'm like, yeah, he runs a route. He's going deep. I turn around and start running. I see Carson Palmer throw the ball. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get it. And I'm running with Chad Johnson, running, and all of a sudden he jumps in front of me, dives, and catches a touchdown. And it broke my heart. I was like, man, I was looking around like everybody hates me in this stadium. There are 75,000 people here. Everyone's probably thinks I'm terrible. My teammates probably hate me. And I'm hanging my head going to the sideline. And I remember Sean Ellis, he grabbed me. He was like, hey, Rook, get your head up, man. He said, this ain't the last time you're going to get beat for a touchdown. They get paid too.
That's a life lesson too.
He's a great player. You know what I mean? You're going to get beat for touchdowns. Your job is defensive back. You're going to play some pretty good receivers in this league. It's the best of the best. And he's like, we're going to need you. Get your head up. You're going to be fine. And so I kind of put my head up, and everybody patted me on the butt and, you know what I mean, said, pick your head up. So now we're up by a touchdown. that Cincinnati gets the ball back. And who are they going to go to? They're going to go right at the rookie who just gave up a touchdown. And so I'm guarding Chad Johnson again. They run a corner route, which is, you run up about 10 yards and run towards the outside pylon. They throw the ball deep again. I cut in front of it, jumped in front, got the interception, sealed the game for the victory.
In your first game?
My first game.
Holy
It was like a roller coaster. I got up, I was celebrating, dancing, with my teammates. My first game, I got an interception, and I was partying, and it was such a great feeling. It was about the highs and the lows, and it just gave me a lot of confidence. Like, man, you could do this. Like, you deserve to be here. You deserve to be in this league.
So for anybody who is not a football fan, you could parallel that to them in that game. Talk about life lessons.
Yeah, so many
like
lessons.
You get knocked down, and you get. I mean,
get back up again.
Yeah, just keep at it.
Yep, just keep fighting, keep believing in yourself. There's gonna be times when you doubt yourself. Of course, you're gonna doubt yourself, but you got to believe that you can do it. You put your mind to it. You put in that work. All that work you put in is not for nothing.
That was an awesome story.
Yeah. And then the next week, we played against San Diego Chargers. We played against Drew Brees, and I got an interception against Drew Brees.
You run about how many touchdowns did you get in your career?
So in college, I had like 4.
Yeah.
Because
it's a strong safety. I mean, it's not a lot of people return the touchdowns in that position, right?
Well, sometimes you jump around and get some, but. A funny thing, I grew up a 49ers fan. I love Jerry Rice, Joe Montana.
Oh my gosh.
Growing up, I love the Niners. Going through the draft process, they actually brought me in for an interview. So that means they're interested in maybe drafting you. They ended up drafting somebody else at safety, and I was so hurt before me. So I was so hurt by that. We played the 49ers that year, and on the first play of the game, I intercepted a pass, got up and ran it back for a touchdown. But I look back, somebody was holding. And the touchdown got called back. That was my only touchdown I got. And they were like, you'll get another one. I never got another one in my career.
There's God moments in everything, man. That when you think about like that, you at the national anthem with the tears your whole life. Yeah. There's so many life lessons in all that. So many. That's why sports are what they are.
That's why I would never take football away from somebody. Like, there's so many lessons I've learned about this game. You talk about communicating, leadership, responsibility, accountability. Like, if I want to go out and party, okay, you're going to disappoint yourself if I don't perform right. But there's also, 53 men that have families that are dependent on this. There's coaches that are depending on this. Like, you got to be accountable to them too. So it taught me a lot of lessons about just life and in general, ups and downs, how to deal with trials and tribulations. Because there's a lot of pressure playing in the NFL.
I'm sure there are a lot of players that come through that have all the physical assets, but mentally with the playbooks and everything else, they can't get it right.
Mm-hmm. A ton of them. I always said this. Like, I wasn't the biggest, fastest, or strongest. That's why I was drafted in the 5th round. I was 5'10", 5'11", 200 pounds. My 40 wasn't exceptional. But I played with a lot of heart. And I outworked everybody. And I studied and I made sure that when my number was called, I knew exactly what I was doing. Because that's going to get me. If I do my studying on my opponent and I study their tendencies and I see what they have going on, I know down and distance, it's 3rd down and 5. Okay, it's 3rd down and 5. They run these certain routes, right? It's 3 by 1. There's 3 receivers on this side. There's 1 on this side. Okay, now it cancel off a couple of routes because they only run 3 routes now. Now this guy goes in motion. Okay, there's 2 routes they can run. On the snap of the ball, the guy runs underneath. Okay, I know what route they're running. Boom, I jump it. Go make a play. That feels so good to be able to study, to be able to study their tendencies, to watch the film, to put it, to apply it once you get to the game and make a play. That's why you see guys celebrating, because there's so much work that's put into making one play in a game that when you make it, it's a celebration.
I'm about to flip that lesson to addiction right now, and I just thought of it. So if you're in treatment or if you're going through this and you really want to do this, mm-hmm. you go through work and you work with people that are going to teach you about scenarios. And if you study and if you read the books mm-hmm. and if you truly do the work, then when that scenario presents itself,
you're ready for it.
Yeah. And for me, when I moved out of a sober living, I left too early. Mm-hmm. And the first place I moved into, there was I didn't know this when I got there. I kind of had an unsettling feeling, but it was the right price, and I didn't have any money, and I went there. The first night alone, I got there. I'm unpacking my stuff. I go to the freezer. There's my favorite vodka in the freezer.
Oh, man.
And but I had prepared, and I had the support, and I had the game plan in place. There's so many metaphors with sports.
They say success is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to prepare, and when that opportunity comes, you're ready.
And I ended up moving out. It took me 3 weeks to get out of there, and it was hell. But I mean, I wouldn't be sitting, had I drank that vodka, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Good for you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate this time. All the metaphors and the parallels between and I think that's why, whatever it is that as you continue to grow your career outside of football with sports, or you decide to do your podcast, or you're working with the NFL alumni, you're going to make a difference. You operate from a place of humility. You're badass, Erik. And to have you out here and to do this with us, and I just look forward to the continued work, and hopefully down the line, we can help someone.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
Okay, appreciate it. Erik Coleman and Josh Hall for Recovery Soapbox, signing off.